The coaching carousel is in full swing in what is never a good day in the National Football League. 5 NFL teams have pulled the plug on their head man. We'll go through each front office and take an in-depth look on if the coaching change will help restore what was a failed season for the football team. This is Nick Rice on NFL Goal Line. Hello and welcome inside the once dead NFL Goal Line studios, back to life here on a Tuesday, December 31st. Want to wish you a Merry Christmas from all. My name is Nick Rice, and a Happy Holidays as we are one day away from a new year. Not only a new year on the calendar, but it has been a new year for 5 NFL football teams, as yesterday, on what many consider Black Monday in the NFL, coaches have been taken away from their duties. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of coach firings, especially just for the sake of cleaning house, as sometimes a new scenery does pose a bigger problem than keeping your coach around, giving him a second chance. Many will question the moves made by Jerry Jones to keep Jason Garrett a 5th consecutive season after going 8-8 for the 3rd year in a row, but I actually agree with the move. We are looking at teams like Cleveland and Oakland, who have led the league in the last decade of coaching moves, of changing coach scenery time and time again, and look at where they're headed, continually in the wrong direction. So making a change at the front office position, especially with your head man, sometimes poses more harm than good. Teams that keep their coach around for a long time: Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Giants. The script has been set on how those teams for decades now have performed better than obviously Cleveland and Oakland. So we'll take a look at all the coaching carousel and also the teams that have not made coaching moves to this point. Notably teams like the Jets and the Cowboys with Rex Ryan and Jason Garrett. So this is a coaching carousel edition of NFL Goal Line. Let's get started. NFL Goal Line presents the league's coaching version of Buy or Sell. We begin with the coaching change in Cleveland. Rob Chudzinski, buy or sell? Jimmy Haslam in the Cleveland front office was declaring that hiring Rob Chudzinski was a mistake. This was a team that wanted to improve during the latter portions of the year, but ended up losing 10 of its last 11 games, including 7 straight to close out another 4-12 campaign. 10 of 11 seasons in a row for Cleveland where they've had double-digit losses. The Cleveland Browns have just been a mess, and they want to rebuild one more time. Rob Chudzinski, while it may be unfair, while it may be a lack of morals by that Cleveland front office, taking Rob Chudzinski down was the best thing for the team. One definition of having a good coach is how they progress over the course of the season. This is a team with a lot of young talent, one of the youngest rosters in the league, and all they need is a quarterback. Chudzinski couldn't have that this season, but he will sometime. He'll be coaching the league eventually. So I agree with the Cleveland Browns' decision of firing Chudzinski. I buy the move. Up next, an under-the-radar move. Leslie Frazier in Minnesota, buy or sell? This decision was a tough one to put my hand around, as there wasn't really a whole lot of talent for Leslie Frazier to work with. He doesn't have a franchise quarterback, either Matt Castle or in Christian Ponder. The Minnesota Vikings defensively ranked in the bottom half of the league, and Adrian Peterson on an off year still had 1,200 yards rushing. It's hard to tell if the entire decision was based off of poor talent or if the head coach at 53 years old, Leslie Frazier, just wasn't doing the job. This team had a poor beginning, so it really had nothing to do but improve, being so bad, going 0-3 to start the season. But Minnesota did improve as of late, as they did run off a couple of key games before. I think what was the determining factor was that loss to the Detroit Lions to close out the season. At the end of the day, I buy the move, however. You aren't going anywhere with your head coach. Time for a change after 3.5 seasons. A mess at the nation's capital. Mike Shanahan from Washington, buy or sell? This is an easy decision. A team that went 3-13. The coaching was a mess, along with that relationship between the front office, Mike Shanahan, and Robert Griffin III. I still believe that Mike Shanahan is a solid head coach, better than a number of the coaches currently on the market. Mike Shanahan, probably the best available option for a number of these teams, but this is a situation where it's not Shanahan's fault, it's more the front office for right off the bat, forcing Shanahan to go with Robert Griffin when he believed more in a man taken in the second round, Kirk Cousins, who still has proven to be a solid quarterback option for the Washington Redskins. They have traded a number of draft picks away, a devastating move in the nation's capital. While I agree with the move, any coach that comes into that system will have a lot of work to do, being 3-13 and a team going in the wrong direction. Washington Redskins fire Mike Shanahan. I buy the decision by the front office. Two teams with a very similar ending. Detroit Lions and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buy or sell? The Detroit Lions were probably one of the best teams to have such a poor record. Detroit falling as of late, which shows the coaching immaturity there by Jim Schwartz. I buy their decision to fire Schwartz after such a solid beginning to the season. Just immaturity has plagued this team for years, and it finally bites them off the backside. I agree with the decision to fire Jim Schwartz. For Greg Schiano, a solid head coach, has for years demonstrated a level of intensity and maturity. I think that Greg Schiano is one of the most undervalued coaches in the NFL. He doesn't have a quarterback. He had to go with Mike Glennon, an undrafted free agent, midway through the season. Josh Freeman didn't work out for him, but it wouldn't work out for anybody. He is just a below-average quarterback. That offense was anemic, and it's not all Greg Schiano. I believe that he needed another year and a top 5 pick to get him a quarterback and give himself a chance. I sell the move. That was buy or sell for NFL Goal Line Coaching Edition. Other moves that have yet to be made, but I believe will be made the next couple of days. The Houston Texans have yet to fire Gary Kubiak yet. I believe he's out the back door after the worst season in the NFL this year, going 2-14 after Houston was a perennial AFC favorite in that conference. Rex Ryan will be back another year along with Jason Garrett. But also, we're taking a look at a number of decisions here to make in the future as far as coaches that are on the market to fill teams like Detroit, like Tampa Bay, and like Minnesota. So I believe that a couple of the coaches that do deserve a second chance in a new system and what I believe is a good fit. First, we'll start with Lovie Smith, a man that was fired for Chicago after a 10-6 season. The Bears let go of him, but I believe that going crosstown to that NFC North foe, the Minnesota Vikings, that might be a solid pickup for a man that's already familiar with the system there for the Minnesota Vikings. Lovie Smith may be a good decision to pick him up there with the Vikings. And then another decision there to be made with Mike Shanahan. I don't know if he'll be back at the head coaching ranks, but if Shanahan is indeed able to take the next step and start over with a new team, Mike Shanahan, a good fit, I believe, would be that of the Detroit Lions, where they just have so much talent, and Mike Shanahan's a great coach that can revamp a team that just needs a kick in the pants. And I believe that Detroit, with all the talent that they have, Matthew Stafford, well, it used to be 3,000 yards, used to be hard to come by in the National Football League. Anybody that can pick up a football seemingly can throw for 3,000 in the National Football League. Stafford throws for basically 5,000 yet again, sidearmed. He is just a fantastic quarterback, but is a little inconsistent and creates a lot of big mistakes late in games. We saw that with the Monday night collapse against the Baltimore Ravens in a 18-16 loss. Calvin Johnson, arguably the best receiver in the game today, and that defense, especially up front, is one of the best in the league. Mike Shanahan, I think that's a solid fit for a team that just needs a running game, wherever he goes, the running game seems to come with it. Alfred Morris, most recently in Washington, had a great rookie campaign and a solid year number 2 as well, where he is number 3 in the league on the ground, right behind LaShawn McCoy and Jamal Charles. Also with the Broncos, most notably with Terrell Davis as well, and recently with any running back that seemed to be wanting to go in that backfield, Noshawn Moreno, along with others, had a lot of success with Mike Shanahan. I believe that Detroit's a solid fit for a man that has had a great resume, just needs another chance where he takes the reins and he's able to do what he has to do. He makes the decisions, not the front office. Mike Shanahan's a good fit. The Chargers with Ken Whisenhunt, he's the offensive coordinator, most notably that Super Bowl appearance with the Arizona Cardinals. He is a solid fit for a team in need of some offense in Tampa Bay. Ken Whisenhunt would be a solid fit there with the Buccaneers down in Florida as well. Now we'll move on to a less gloomy topic, as we don't want to talk all day about coaches getting fired. I do want to talk about just how exciting this NFL wild card matchups are. I'll go more in depth later on in the week. Make sure to tune back in to Spreaker.com's national sports radio station. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Nick Rice as a part of the NFL Goal Line Studios. The 4 wild card matchups include the Niners at 11-5 against the 8-7-1 Green Bay Packers. Should be a fun one to watch. That one, in my mind, is the biggest mismatch of the weekend, as the Packers sneaking into the playoffs, beating one of the worst defenses we have seen quite some time in the Chicago Bears. Meanwhile, the Niners do not look like a wild card team. 11-5 to the chagrin of the Niner faithful, because the Seahawks, one game up on them, were able to clinch that number 1 spot with a victory during the last week of the season, bumping the Niners out. So now it comes down to the Niners and the Packers in Green Bay. Weather report says it's around 10 degrees, tentative forecast for that game in Lambeau. But the Niners, with that ground and pound defense and with the ability to go over the top, if they can get a 10-point lead early on in the game, this one might be over, because Aaron Rodgers, second game back from his collarbone. When coming from behind, the Packers are not a solid team. They had the lead for most of the game against Chicago as well. I'd take the Niners over the Packers in the first wild card matchup. The game number 2, the Chargers and the Bengals. I agree that Cincinnati, just such a powerful team. They match up so well against San Diego, especially at home in frigid conditions. San Diego, West Coast team, has to travel all the way to the East Coast, Ohio. It's going to be a tough matchup there for San Diego, coming off an emotional win in overtime, having to play one more tough game. I think that's too much for San Diego. Going to be a close matchup. I think Cincinnati gets it done at home, especially with a defense on the front 4 that is so powerful, top 5 in the league at sacking the quarterback, against an offensive line for the Chargers that has struggled all year long in pass protection. Game number 3, and this one I believe is a coin flip. The Saints at home taking on the Philadelphia Eagles that won the NFC East last week. That should be a high-flying matchup between 2 top 5 offenses. Drew Brees of the Saints and Nick Foles, who has resurged under Chip Kelly's offense, and a number 1 ground attack with LaShawn McCoy leading the league in rushing. A coin flip, I would like to go with Philadelphia, but at the end of the day, the Saints have been there and have done that. It's experience that I believe is a good 7-10 point advantage, especially early on for an NFL team in Philadelphia. Doesn't know what the playoffs are like under this new Chip Kelly era. A lot of new faces that have very minimal experience under the Chip Kelly regime. I do believe that the New Orleans Saints get it done, especially with a coach that now has all of his players back from injury. Lance Moore is back for the Saints, along with other key positions. Sean Payton, I believe, gets it done. He's been there, done that. Saints over the Philadelphia Eagles. Last game of the weekend, the Chiefs and the Colts. Kansas